Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 multiplayer action. Today we've got a community cast from Dutch Skink. This time he's taken Bretonnia up against the Wood Elves, so usually a pretty good matchup for Bretonnia. We'll talk about why in just a second, but for builds here we've got a front line of mobs, second line of men-at-arms with shields, lots of peasant arrows, which is great. We've got some Damsel Lore of Life as well, a couple of men-at-arms with shields in the back, King Lewin, Royal Pegasus Knights, and the Green Knight, which is a bit of a risky pick here, but we'll see how it does. We've got, on the Wood Elf side, 4 units of Deepwood Scouts, as well as several Glade Riders with Hagbane tips, a Grey Eagle, and a Glade Lord on horseback. This is actually the male Glade Lord with the no Helm of Discord, just the melee attack buff. Interesting, so very, very cheap. We've got a couple of Wildwood Rangers as well with some heavy XP chevrons, so a couple of very elites here. And yeah, just some Eternal Guard scattered throughout. Right off the bat, you can see Dutch Skink is going to just kind of sit back, be patient. This is what you need to do in this type of a situation, is just sit back and counter skirmish, because all of the targets that the Wood Elves could potentially shoot at here are much, much cheaper than the Wood Elves themselves. So regardless of how this fight, gets traded, you're going to probably end up doing reasonably well. That being said, the Peasant Archers are taking a beating from those Deepwood Scouts, and so far Deepwood Scouts are okay, but granted, a lot of the focus fire has been on these Wild Riders. Of course, getting rid of that mobility advantage will be very helpful for these Pegasus Knights and so on. Lewin here can activate that Lion Shield and tank out some of this damage, but a very nice pick by the Defenders of the Floor League, able to get up and around that cliffside and pin these Deepwood Scouts in kind of this little ravine area. So very good stuff there. Eternal Guard coming around the hill trying to help, but the Deepwood Scouts up on the high ground there are going to get caught by Lewin himself. Pegasus Knights also swooping up and around, so a bit of a pickle right off the bat, but oh no, looks like those Pegasus Knights actually swoop down and just finish off that unit of Deepwood Scouts, so that's pretty decent there. They might be able to get back up in the air and draw that Grey Eagle into a really unfavorable engagement, but Lewin's just fine. The Deepwood Scouts don't have the best AP values in the world. They're pretty decent, but 4 AP per shot is not amazing, so he can definitely tank out a lot of that missile fire there. Meanwhile, over here, the shooting war is continuing as these peasants are getting a little bit out of position and might get charged by the Wild Riders here, so a bit of a pickle. The rest of the peasants probably need to move up there and support, but meanwhile here, Lewin is able to get the Grey Eagle back in the air, so he can then turn around and finish it off there. The peasants could still continuing to take quite a bit of damage. If we look at the numbers game here, you can see that Bretonnia has lost more, certainly, going on about 300 losses there to only about 100 losses for the Wood Elves, but of course they have a lot more to lose, right? Lots of peasant bodies here, and the loss of these Wild Riders is definitely tough. I mean, they're still not quite gone yet, but just having a tough time in general here. So we're going to fast forward a little bit through this mid-game as the skirmish fight does ensue for quite some time, obviously. Both of these builds having quite a few shooting units, so definitely want to try and take advantage of that as much as we can, or as much as he can, rather. So yeah, you can see just kind of getting those peasants back into a position here, just weathering some of those shots, bringing the damsel up and around, and trying to lure some of these units sort of out of position, if you will. So yeah, we're going to continue to fast forward through this mid-game. You can see the Green Knight made his way all the way up and around, and because of the different positionings here, he can then potentially come in from behind and get a really good surround, just like this. So yeah, Green Knight's now going to come in here, start to get a favorable situation where he can kind of pin from multiple directions. This is very well played by Dutch Skink here, getting the Pegasus Knights on the other side, and this is why you don't necessarily want to issue a direct charge order. If you guys watch, like, American football, or even, international football or soccer for you filthy Americans, you'll know a lot about positioning and leading. Like, especially if your target's faster than you, you need to try and predict where they're going to be, right, rather than charging them directly, because you'll always just be following. So very well played by Dutch Skink doing that here. He is able to catch a number of those Deepwood Scouts. Granted, some of them have used up quite a bit of their ammo already, but the veteran Wildwood Rangers moving in now, doing quite a bit of damage to those Royal Pegasus Knights. They are still at 18 models. They might have just dropped one. Yeah, down to 17 just now. But Green Knight can kind of tank out some of that damage. Meanwhile, over here, these Deepwood Scouts just continuing to waste ammo into these peasants. This is pretty much the most cost-effective thing you can do with peasant bowmen, or peasant mobs, rather, is to catch arrows with their faces. So, oh man, good job, lads. Oh yeah, you got it right to the throat. Great work. Excellent, excellent work. Over here, these defenders are going to get kind of bogged down by the Hagbane tips a little bit here. They have taken quite a bit of damage. Meanwhile, these Pegasus Knights, though, did get a regrowth, so they will be able to recover quite a bit of that HP. Again, 17 models still, so a lot of healing potential left. And the Green Knight, again, just kind of pulling back, waiting until they can get a favorable engagement. Over here, the Wood Elves finally realize they need to start advancing on this archer pocket here, so the Eternal Guard going to start moving in and slugging it out with these peasants. They will obviously win, but the key here is that they're buying time for those archers to shoot in, right? You can see just the hail of arrows, pox arrows, fire arrows of all kinds just raining in here on these Eternal Guard as they get focused down. So pretty brutal stuff there. Speaking of brutality, over here, these Royal Pegasus Knights are about to go into a pretty tough situation. Lots of Overwatch fire, especially from those Glade Riders, and that poison is significant with that speed debuff. But yeah, you can see Lewin drops down to occupy the Glade Riders, and can these Pegasus Knights now drop and finish those Deepwood Scouts? Deepwood Scouts have okay-ish stats, but the Pegasus Knights have gotten low enough on HP now that they're going to have kind of a hard time here. They're going to start to drop unit models the more shots they take, so yeah, a little bit of a weird engagement here too, as they're not really able to get down onto the ground. The Wood Elf player doing a great job kind of dodging around with those Deepwood Scouts, dodging the charge somewhat. And he is going to be able to drag down those Royal Pegasus Knights with attritional ranged fire there. Meanwhile, though, the mainline fight for the Wood Elves is going very poorly. The Eagle has taken a bunch of damage. All of these Eternal Guards, I mean, they did cut through mobs, obviously, but now facing off very cost-inefficiently against Men-at-Arms with shields. Men-at-Arms with shields, especially because of their good melee defense. Yeah, let's see here. 34 melee defense is quite solid. So they will be able to hold up very cost-efficiently against those Eternal Guards. And, of course, archers continuing to fire in. Those Pegasus Knights did get routed off, but Lewin's still on the field. He's going to be going after the Glade Lord here. And since there's no caster for the Wood Elves, they forgot to bring a caster, it looks like there's going to be no healing option for him. The Green Knight, meanwhile, let's check in with him. Up to 30 kills. Hasn't really been doing too much, but has been able to keep these veteran Wildwood Rangers occupied for quite some time, and they're both way out of position here from the main line fight, so, you know, that in and of itself is useful, even if he's not getting a ton of damage done. But, yeah, you can see the Wood Elves, I mean, they will cut through the peasants eventually, but they're going to have a pretty hard time of it, especially with all these archers on the field, and the balance of power is pretty well in Bretonia's favor at this point, although certainly these two Wildwood Rangers being left on the field still so healthy is pretty tough. But, yeah, we'll see. We're going to zoom in close for some cinematics as Lewin comes in for a charge here, and the peasants are just duking it out with elves on the ground. Doing their duty, if you will. I love the kettle hats, too, I have to say. Oh, man, a brutal rear charge there from Lewin. Just does a ton of damage. Probably going to proc a terror route. Yep, looks like quite a few of those units do terror route there. And how about those Pegasus Knights? Despite the fact they have about 500 HP left, they do come back. They get a nice rear charge in here, get some good damage done. Up to 70 kills. Will they get an XP Chevron? Perhaps. Maybe not. Being left in a little bit here. Long, maybe. But no, it looks like they may try and get back up in the air. Regardless, you know, they've already gotten some pretty good value chasing down, like, Deepwood Scouts and stuff like that. So, decent stuff. Lewin's going to move over here to finish off these Glade Riders, which were chasing some of his Peasant Archers. And although ranged units are most unchivalrous, he does want to try and save those Peasants if he can. And let's check in with the RPKs. A handful of them remain, unfortunately, fighting here against Eternal Guards. They are going to get dragged down, but, you know, definitely did their job as well. Just being mobile, getting that nice mobility initiative advantage, if you will. But yeah, at this point, it's just a matter of time before the Wood Elves kick the can. I mean, granted, again, the leadership, especially for these veteran Wildwood Rangers, look at their stats. 55 attack, 42 defense. Only 36 weapon strength isn't the best in the world, but yeah, very impressive stats there from those guys. Unfortunately, they do lack armor generally, and again, not having any healing for them is really rough. Like, having a regrowth for these Wildwood Rangers, they've only taken a handful of casualties, and being able to put a regrowth on them, you know, that would change things quite a bit. Meanwhile, over here, the Green Knight, somehow still alive, has managed to actually catch the Glade Lord here. And this is going to be a great opportunity to see how RNG works in this game, because you can see many of the Glade Lord's attacks are going to miss. Of course, he does have 70 melee attack against 50 melee defense, so that's a pretty good chance to hit. For those of you guys who don't know, the dice roll is, it's a base 35% chance to hit, and then for every point your melee attack is over your opponent's melee defense, it goes up by 1% or lower down by 1%. So Like in this situation here, 50 melee defense versus 70 melee attack would mean a 55% chance to hit. So pretty decent stuff. The Green Knight does finally go down there to the Wildwood Rangers, but it did tank quite a bit of damage throughout the course of the battle. And, you know, just, yeah, the Wood Elves aren't looking too hot at this point. I mean, Lewin's still just so healthy. And if they weren't having leadership issues, the Wood Elves might actually be able to pull something out here. But here, the Grey Eagle takes the Sword of Corone to the face, gets terrified away. The Blade Lord's going to try and charge in, but this is a bit of a risky play for him. I mean, granted, with the Wildwood Rangers and the Eternal Guard supporting, he'll do okay, but some very nice Peasant Archer fire coming in the late game here. Going to be able to do some really cost-effective damage to those veteran Wildwood Rangers. Of course, very expensive, but almost no armor, so they will take some very inefficient damage from those Peasant Bowmen. And yeah, Lewin just going to continue to cycle charge here until the cows come home. So we are going to continue to fast forward through this late game, and you can see, again, what I'm talking about there. The good stats on the Wildwood Rangers help, but just in a situation like this where the balance of power is so far out of favor, you know, the Wildwood Rangers definitely could still do a lot of damage to Lewin, but they just don't have the leadership to stand up at this point. Once their Lord gets finished off and everything, it's gonna be tough for them in terms of their leadership. So that one isolated Eternal Guard gets taken out. And yeah, the balance of power, yeah, a little bit of a liar here, because again, there are still quite a few powerful troops, but all it's going to take is that Lord to get finished off, and then the Wood Elves are going to start to run into mass leadership issues. So here comes Lewin for the killing blow. Oh man, and that is quite the killing blow there. Finishes off, or at least terrifies away the Blade Lord, and that is going to lead to just a mass terror rout all across the field there. Nice rear charge from the Damsel, finishes off the high leadership of that last unit, and there's army losses. So fun replay from Dutch Skink. Interesting build from the Wood Elves as well. I mean, obviously he definitely needed a caster there. Like, you could even just drop this Great Eagle and just bring a Lore of Life Spellsinger instead. But the mass Deepwood Scouts is actually quite interesting. I mean, granted, they ended up wasting a lot of their ammo on peasants. I mean, the kill totals look impressive, but that's not necessarily what you would want to see. You know, that generally indicates that they wasted their ammo on a lot of chaff that's cheaper than them, so probably didn't end up paying out. The couple of units, though, that were doing skirmishing with, like, the Royal Pegasus Knights and the Defenders, you saw there that they were able to do some reasonably decent damage. But how about Lewin? 82 kills, 87 for the Royal Pegasus Knights, 99 for the Defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis, so very good stuff. And interesting to see that veteran Peasant Bowman. I must have missed that. Somehow gained rank 9, although that may be a bug. I'm not sure about that. You can let me know in the comments, Dutch Skink, whether you chevron this guy up or not. But this guy looks like did get a proper XP chevron, so yeah, pretty good stuff. As for the Wood Elf side, again, the Wildwood Rangers, interesting pick here, but the reason this matchup is tough for the Wood Elves generally is because you just really can't stop those heavy cavalry charges. Yes, you have a lot of anti-large AP infantry that's pretty cost-effective, but, I mean, they're also very light in terms of mass. Charge defense doesn't really do a lot because Bretonians, I mean, you basically have to ask them to charge you in the face, right? Like, they're very easily going to be able to break your bracing bonus. Try saying that 5 times fast. Break your bracing bonus, and also, you know, just the heavy mass, and there's just way too many bodies of cav usually, so can be tough. There are some different things you can do. You can try and go for an air force of Hawk Riders. They do reasonably well here at rear charging cav. The missile attack's nice, but of course Royal Pegasus Knights are going to be a huge danger. You could try and go with like a mass Waywatcher build, but again, you're going to be very in danger of getting run over by just multitudes of like Knights Errant and just, you know, other stuff like that. You can try and Tree Blob, which is maybe the most effective, arguably. Durthu's probably pretty good here. Bretonians don't have that many great tools for killing him, especially in a late game because of that charge defense. Charge defense actually matters, from what I've found, a lot more for single entity models because they can't have their bracing bonus broken as easily. They actually can get the benefit of that charge defense quite a bit, so Durthu can be a menace here. Or just generally an Ancient Tree Man, regular Tree Man as well, does heavy AP magic damage, so he's pretty good against Cav. Also has that Expert Charge defense, and yeah, will provide mass that stops up those heavy cavalry charges, right? And typically I'll run Firebark Elders and Treekin as well, just to give me a little bit more cavalry stopping power. And this way, you know, again, the Treekin don't do much damage at all. Their damage output is very poor. They're mostly just here to tie units down, and of course the Firebark Elders also have the benefit of giving fire resistance to everyone nearby, so those pesky fire arrows won't be so effective. You could maybe cheap out on the Firebark Elders and just go for the another regular unit of Treekin if you wanted to try and go a little bit wider on your army, but just generally I would say the tree units, from what I've found, are pretty decent against Bretonnia. Obviously there are still some dangers, but let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Definitely a fun replay from Dutch Skink, so big thanks for sending that one in. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button, so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.